that fresh plastic sound. We've got a fresh canvas for this project. Fresh and ready to go. So, a couple years ago, I read this story for a video. I don't remember what it was. It might have even been last year, but we're going to retell it with a better mic where I can be really close and creepy while we're painting this creepy, fantastic vampire cat. Now, don't judge my art style. It's my art style. I'm not the proudest of it, but it's mine. Anyways, we are reading The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. So, without further ado, I'm going to start sketching and I'm going to start reading. The Black Cat. For the most wild yet most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Mad indeed would I be to expect it, in a case where my very senses reject their own evidence. Yet mad I am not, and very surely do I not dream. But tomorrow I die, and today I will unburden my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, painfully, seductively, and without comment, a series of mere household events and coincidence. These events have terrified and tortured me, and also destroyed me, yet I will not attempt to expunge them. To me, they have presented little but horror. To many, they will seem less terrible hereafter. Perhaps some intelligence may be found, which will reduce my phantasm to the commonplace. Some intellect more calm, more logical, far less excitable than my own, which will perceive in criticism stance. I detail the awe, nothing more than the ordinary succession of natural causes and effects. For my infirmary, I was noted for the docile humanity of my disposition. My tenderness of heart was even so conspicuous to make me the jet of my compassions. I was especially fond of animals, and was indulged by my parents with great variety of pets. With these I spent most of my time, and never was so happy as to feeding and carrying them. This peculiarity of character grew with my youth, and in manhood I derived from it one of my principal sources of pleasure. To those who have cherished an affection for the faithful and I don't know that word, dog, I need hardly be at the trouble of explaining to the nature of the gratification thus derivable. There is something in the unselfish and self-sophisticating love of a brute which goes directly into the heart of him who has frequently occurred to test the paltry friendship and fidelity of mere man. I married early, and was happy to find in my wife a disposition not uncorrelated with my own, observing my partial for domestic pets. She was no lost opportunity for procuring those of the most agreeable kind. We had birds, goldfish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. A monkey? Okay. This latter was remarkably large, and a beautiful animal, entirely black. In speaking of his intelligence, my wife, who at heart was not with superstition, we frequently allude the ancient popular notion, which regarded that all black cats are witches in disguise. Slay. Not that she was ever suspicious upon this point, and I mentioned to the matter of all, but no better reason. and that it happened just now to be remembered. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him and attended me whenever I went out the house. It was even with difficulty that I could prevent him from following me through the streets. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general temptation and character experienced a radical alteration for the worse. I grew, day by day, more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feelings of others. I had suffered myself to use horrible language to my wife. At length, I even offered her personal violence. My pet, of course, were made to feel the change in my disposition. I not only neglected, but ill-used them. Oh, this man. For Pluto, however, I still remain significant regard to disdain from maltreating him. Ooh, I don't like this guy. As I made no scrub of maltreating the rabbits, the monkey, or even the dog, when by accident or through fiction they came in my way. But my disease grew upon me. For what disease? Is like alcohol. And at length, even Pluto knew, who was becoming old, and constantly somewhat peevish, even though began to experience effects of my ill temper. One night, returning home, much intoxicated, from one of my haunts about town, I noticed that the cat avoided my presence. I seized him, when in his fright of violence, he inflicted a slightly wound upon my hand with his teeth, slay as he should. The fury of a demon instantly possessed me. I knew myself no longer. Oh no. My original soul seemed to at once taken flight from my body, and more than fiendish malevolence, grin nurtured thrill every fiber of my frame. I took off my waistcoat. Oh no. Pocket a penknife. Oh god. Opened it. Oh no. I don't think I can read that. Okay, I'll summarize this. He took the pointy Sharpie thing, and he took the cat, and he took out its eyeball. Oh my god. And then he the thing. Ooh, I hate this man. When reason returned within the morning, I had slept off the fumes of the nights previous. I experienced a sentient half of horror and half of remorse for the crime at which I had been guilty, but it was at best a feeble feeling, and the soul remained untouched. I again plunged into excess, and soon drowned in wine all memory of the deed. In the meantime, the cat slowly recovered. How? The socket of the lost eye presented, it's true, a frightening appearance, but he was no longer appeared to suffer pain. He went around the house as usual, but it seemed to be expected, fled in extreme terror at my presence, as he should. I had so much of my old heart left, but at first grieved by this evident dislike on the part of the creature who had once loved me. You killed him. Of course he's not going to love you. But this feeling soon gave place to irritation, and then came, as if to my final and overthrow, the spirit of perseverance of this spirit. Why can't I say that word? Philosophically take no account. Yet I am more than sure that my soul lives, that I am perceived in one of the primitive impulses of the human heart, one of the invisible primary or sentimentals, which gives the direction of the character of a man, who has not 100 times found himself committing a vile or silly action, for no other reason than because he knows he should not. Hath you not indication in the teeth of the best judgment, to violate which laws merely because we understand it to be such? The spirit of persiveness, I say, comes to my final overthrow. Is this the unfathomable loathing to the soul, to vex itself, to offer violence to its own nature, to do wrong from the wrong's sake only, that urged me to continue, finally to consume the injury that I had inflicted upon the unsuffering brute? That's not a nice way to talk about your cat. One morning in cold blood. Oh my god. Chat. He hung the cat. Oh my god. I'm gonna skip this part because I don't want to read that. I don't want to say that, and I did not want to read that, but anyway. And with bitterness and remorse in my heart, he did that because I knew that it had loved me, and because I felt it had given no reason to offense. Did that because I knew I was going to commit a sin, a deadly sin, that would jeopardize my immoral soul to place with. If such a thing were possible, even beyond the reach of infinite mercy, of the most merciful and most terrible God. This man is major level Delulu. On the night of the day of which the cursed cruel deed was done, I was aroused from my sleep to the cry of fire. The curtains on my bed were in flames. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty to my wife, a servant, and myself made our escape. Oh, the cat did that from the afterlife, I bet you. Escaped from the flames. The destruction was complete. My entire worldly wealth was swallowed up, and I resigned myself thenceforward to despair. That's what you get for hurting and killing that cat. I am above the weakness of seeking to establish a sense of cause and effect between the disaster and I don't know that word. But I'm detailing a chain of facts and wish not to leave a possible link to imperfection. One day, succeeding the fire, I visit the ruins, the walls with which one expected had fallen in. This expectation was found. In a compartment wall, not very thick, which stood about the middle of the house, and against which had rested the head of my bed. The plastering here, in great measure, resisted the action of the fire, a fact which I attributed to have been recently spread. About this a wall-dense crowd collected, and many persons seemed to be examining the peculiar portion of it this very minute, in eager attention. The world's strange, singular, and other similar expansions excited my curiosity. I approached, and saw as if graven in bas relief upon the white surface the figure of a gigantic cat. I was right. The impression was given accuracy, truly marvelous. There was a rope. You know where that rope was, chat. When I first beheld this abomination, for I could only regard it as less, my wonder and my terror were extreme, but at length reflection came to my aid. The cat, I remembered, had been done that to in the garden adjacent to my home. Upon the alarm of fire, this garden had been immediately filled by the crowd, by someone whom the animal might have been taken from the tree. And through an open window in my chamber, there had probably been done with the view waking me from my sleep. The falling of the other walls had compromised the victim of my cruelty into the substance of the freshly spread plaster, the lime which the flames and the aroma from the had then accomplished the portrait as I saw it. Okay, I just want to see how many more pages is in this story, because this is disturbing. Okay, no, not many. Split philology takes no account, yet I am more sure than my soul lives that I am perceived of one of these... Wait, I already read that. One night as I sat half stir-fried in a den that does not... Stir-fried? What? Of more than infirmary, my attention was suddenly drawn back to a black object reposting upon the head of one of the immense hogsheads of gin or of rum, which constituted the chief's furniture of the apartment. I had been looking steadily at the top of the hogshead for some minutes, and what now caused me surprise was the fact that I had not sooner perceived the object thereupon. I approached it and touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, fully as large as Pluto was, and completely resembling him in every aspect but one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any portion of his body, but this cat had a large, although infinite, splotching of white covering nearby the whole region of his breast. So, okay. Interesting. Upon touching him, he immediately woke, purred loudly, rode against my hand, and appeared delighted with my notice. This, then, was this very creature of which I was in search of. I at once offered to purchase it from the landlord, but this person made no claim to it, knew nothing of it, had never seen it before. I continued to caress the cat, and when I was prepared to go home, the animal followed me. I permitted it to do so, occasionally stooping and patting it. As I proceeded, when I reached the house, it domesticated itself at once, and became good friends with my great wife. From my own part, I soon found a dislike to it. Oh my God, he's gonna do it again. For my own part, I found a dislike arising within me. This was not the reverse of what I had anticipated, but I know now or why it was. Its evident fondness of myself rather disgusted and annoyed me. By slow degree, these feelings of disgust and annoyance rose into bitterness and hatred. What did the cat ever do to you, bro? Chill. I avoided the creature. A certain sense of shame and remembrance of my former deed of cruelty prevented me from physically abusing it. Why did you do it in the first place, bro? I did not for some weeks strike or otherwise violently ill-use it, but gradually, very gradually, I came upon it with an unutterable loathing, and to flee suddenly from its presence, from the breath of... What added, no doubt, to my hatred of the beast was the discovery in the morning after I brought it home. Oh boy. That, like Pluto, it also had been deprived of one of its eyes, because it is Pluto. This circumstance, however, only endeared it to my wife, who, as I have already possessed in a high degree of humanity for feeling which once had been a disgusting trait of my source of my many simplest and purest pleasures. I don't understand what that means. With that aversion to this cat, however, it particularly from myself seemed to increase. It followed my footsteps with accuracy, which it would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. Whenever I sigh, it would crouch beneath my chair. That's such a power move. Or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome carelessness. If I rose to walk, it would be beneath my feet and thus throw me down, or fasten its long and sharp claws to my dress chamber. In this manner to my chest, and at such times, although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from doing so, partly by memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by absolute dread of the beast. Bro's scared of a little kitty cat. The dread was not exact a dread of physical evil, yet I should be at a loss how otherwise to define it. I am not ashamed to own, yes, even in this felon's cell, I am almost ashamed to own that terror and horror which the animal impressed me had been heightened by one of the merest cinemas it would be possible to conceive. My wife had called my attention more than once to the character of the mark of the white hair which I had spoken, and which strained to my soul, visibly different between the stages of the breast and the one that I had destroyed. The reader will remember that this mark, although large, had not been originally very identified by slow degrees nearly imperceivable, and which for a long time my reason suggested to reject as fateful. It had been at length assuming a rigid, distinctive outline. It was now representative of an object that I shuddered to name, and for this I above all loathed and dreaded, and had to get rid of myself of the monster I dread now. It was now, I say, the image of a hideous and ghastly thing, of the gallows, a mournful and terrible energy, a horror of crimes and agony and of death. My guy, you did this upon yourself. And now I indeed wrench beyond the wrenchedness of mere humanity, and a brute beast, who fellow that I had compromisingly destroyed, a brute beast to work out with me, for me, a man fashioned in the image of the high God, so much of insufferable woe. Alas, neither day or night knew I was blessed of the rest of any more. During this former, the creature left me no moment alone, and in latter, I started hourly from dreaming of unimaginable fear, to find hot breath of the thing upon my face, and its vast weight and nightmare that I had no power to shake off. Beneath the pleasure of torment, pressure, not pleasure, such as these, the feeble remain of the good within me destroyed. Evil thoughts became my soul. Thoughts, the darkness, the most evil of thoughts. The moodiness of my usual temper increased to hatred of all things and of all of mankind. Whilst for the sudden, frequent, and ungovernable outburst of the fury to which I now blindly abandoned myself, my uncomplaining wife, alas, was the most usual and the most patient of the sufferers. Ew, this man beats his wife too. He killed a cat and now he beats his wife. Ew. He gets what's coming to him. One day she accompanied me upon some household errands into the cellar of the old building which our poverty compelled us to inhabit. The cat followed me down the stairs and nearly threw me headlong, exacerbated me to madness. Oh God. Uplifting an axe and forgetting in my wrath and childish dread which had stayed in my mind, I aimed to blow at the animal, which of course would have provided instant fatal if it had descended as I wished, but the blow was arrested by the hand of my wife, goaded by the interference into rage more than a demoniacal. I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe. He buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot without a groan. So he just killed his wife because she defended the poor innocent cat. Boy, this man is crazy. The hideous murder accomplished, I sat myself forward, and with entire deliberation, to the task of concealing the body. Of course, I knew what I could not remove it from the house either by day or night without risking of being observed by the neighbors. Many projects entered my mind. At one point I thought of putting her he was gonna... Okay. This is gross and disturbing, but he was gonna cut her up and burn her. You can't see my face right now, but I am making a face of pure disgust. Another, I resolved to dig a grave from the foot cellar again. I deliberated about casting it in a well in the wall, about packing it in a box, as if it were merchandise. Oh my god. With the usual arrangements of getting a porter to take it from the house. Finally, considering a far better extent of these, I determined to wall it up in the cellar, as the monks of the Middle Ages have recorded to wall up their victims. That's some crazy work. For a purpose such as the cellar was well adapted, its walls were loosely constructed and had lately been plastered through with rough plaster, which the dampness of the atmosphere had prevented from hardening. Moreover, one of the walls was protected, caused by a false chimney or a fireplace that had been filled up, and made to resemble the rest of the cellar. I had made no doubt that I could readily displace the bricks at the point and insert the person and the wall, the hole up before, so no one could detect anything suspicious. And in this calculation, I was not deceived. By means of a crowbar, I easily dislodged the bricks, and having carefully disposed of the body against the inner wall, I propped up in position while the little trouble I relaid the bricks and the structure as originally stood, having procured mortar, sand, and hair. With every possible precaution, I prepared the plaster, which would not be distinguished from the old, and this I very carefully went over to the new brickwork, and I had finished. I felt satisfaction that I was all right. The wall did not present the slightest appearance of having been disturbed. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with minute care. I look around. Where's this cat? Triumphantly, and said to myself, here at last. Then my labor was not in vain. This man is Delulu. Honestly, Delulu. Triumphantly, and said to myself, here at last. Then my labor has not been in vain. The next step was to look for the beast, which had been cause of so much wretchedness, for I had the length to finally resolve to put him to sleep. My hair is in my eye. Had I been able to meet with it the moment, there could have no doubt of its faith, but it appeared that the crafty animal had been alarmed at my violence, as it should, of my previous anger, and forebode to my presence itself. In my present mood, it is impossible to describe or imagine the deep and blissful sense of relief with the absence of the dreaded animal. Occasionally in my sleep. What? It doesn't make any sense. It did not make its appearance during the night, and thus one more night, at least since it introduced into the house, I soundly and triumphantly slept. Slept, even with the burden of murder upon my soul. That'll be 2 murders, my guy. The second and third day passed, and still my torment came not. Once again, I breathed as a free man. The monster, in terror, had fled the premises forever. I don't know about that. I should behold it no more. My happiness was supreme. The guilt of the dark deed disturbed me but little. Some few inquiries had made it, but these had been readily answered. Even a search had been inducted, but of course nothing was discovered. I looked up my future as secured. Upon the 4th day of the assassination, a party of the police came over unexpectedly into the house and proceeded again to make a rigorous investigation of the premises. Secure, however, in the incapability of the place of my concealment, I felt no embarrassment of whatever. The officers bid me adieu. I lost where I was. At length, the 3rd and 4th time, then they descended into the cellar. I quivered not a muscle. My heart beat calmed, and that who stumbles innocent. I walked up to the cellar front end, folded my arms upon my chest, and roamed easily to and fro. The police were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to depart. The glee of my heart was too strong to be restrained. I burdened to say, but if no one, by the way of triumph, and to render a doubt, sure their assistance of my guiltiness. Gentlemen, I say, as the party ascends the steps, I delight to have allayed your suspicions. I wish you all a healthy and little more courtesy. By the way, gentlemen, this is a very well constructed house. I may say an excellent, well constructed house. These walls are going, gentlemen. These walls are slowly put together, and there, through the mere frenzy of bravo, I heavily with a cane, which I held in my hand, upon the very portion of the brickwork behind which stood the body of his wife. But may God shield and deliver me from the fangs of the archfield. No sooner than had reverberated of the blows of the skull into silence, then I was answered by a voice within the tomb, but a cry, and a muffled and broken, like a sobbing of a child, and then quickly swelling into a long, loud, and continuous scream, utterly anomalous and inhuman, a howl, a whining shriek, half of horror, half of triumph, such as might have arisen only out of hell, conjoiningly from the throats of the damned in their agony and the demons that execute in damnation. Oh, it's the cat. Or what's left of the cat. Of my own thought, too foully to speak, swooning, I staggered to the opposite wall. From one instant to the party upon the stairs, remained motionless, through extreme of terror and awe. In the next, a dozen shot arms were running to the wall. It fell boldly. The body, already greatly decayed and clothed with gore, stood exact before the eyes of the spectators. Upon its head, with a red, extended mouth and solitary eyes of fire, sat the hideous beast, Slay, whose craft had seduced me into murder, and whose informant voice had consigned me to the hangman. I had watched the monster. I had mauled the monster up within the tomb. The end. I did not like that. I have read that story before on this channel. And yeah, I stutter a lot when I read. I can't help it. I've been like that my whole life. But that was crazy. Like, so the guy was a loving and kind man. He married a wife who was a sweet, sweet woman who cared and loved for all creatures to exist. So was he. Up until, I guess, he was married a long time. He got older, and something in him snapped, and he hated animals. And the cat was in his way when he came home from the bar, and he was drunk, and he took out the poor innocent kitty cat for no other reason than the fact that it was in his way, which, that is just vile upon vile. And then the cat lived somehow. He got rid of the cat's eye, and he its throat. The cat lived somehow, and then he, quote, put it out of its misery and hung it. But then suddenly his house burned down. Womp womp, get ratio, that's what you get. And then he goes somewhere to buy furniture or something, and he sees an identical black cat, but instead of it being pure black, it has a white fur on its chest. And his wife instantly falls in love with it. and he doesn't like that because the cat's not paying attention to him. And then he leaves the cat alone for a long time, but then he becomes more ruthless, I guess you want to say, and more angry and hates his life and gets more drunk. And then he goes down to the cellar with his wife, tries to kill the cat again, but his wife stops him. So in a fit of rage, he offs the wife and then puts her in the wall, and then the cat's in the wall somehow. That is a crazy story. Absolutely bananas. And very rather disturbing. The reason I can read you this story is because it's in the public domain now. I literally bought a book that has like all of his random stories in it. Like, there's the cat one. There's a Tall Tale Heart, which I read in high school. Maybe I'll read that one next year. There's just, I don't know half of these stories, but I don't want to know them because that was really disturbing. If I sound out of breath, it's because I've been talking straight for 30 minutes and it's a little hard to do. Anyways, I'm gonna hang up our vampire kitty. I don't have very many paintings that I've painted anymore. I throw them out usually. But this is my art style. Very simplistic, but it's fun. I'm not the biggest fan of my art style, I'm not gonna lie, but you know, it is what it is. It's my unique style. But it's a style. I tried to paint a house. It didn't work. But the vampire cat's cute. Anyways. Oh, I got a big paint streak on my arm. I am truly disturbed by what I just read to you guys. That was dark, disgusting, disturbing, violent, gory, all the good stuff that makes a horror story, but why did it have to be a cat? And why did his wife have to die? Like, she did nothing to nobody. Like, there's the black cat literally right there. He watches you guys. And you've noticed that some of you aren't subscribed. So hit that like and subscribe button and comment what you think I should name him and his little buddy there. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I am truly disturbed and it's almost midnight, so I'm gonna go to bed, but we're gonna leave it on that note. Do you guys like my new microphone? Okay, peace and love, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Stay spooky.